Hi, I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington Realtors Legal Hotline lawyer, and I hate to be filming this video topic again. We have filmed this video topic in the past, and unfortunately, the problem is getting worse and worse, and the problem is wire fraud. I receive information from other lawyers in the industry and from brokers too many times a week, literally too many times a week, about consumers who have lost tens of thousands, or in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars to wire fraud. And remember the way this scheme works. Broker and consumer are emailing one another. We have a transaction. We are approaching the time when a buyer would wire funds to escrow. And at that time, the hacker who has been monitoring these email exchanges, the hacker jumps into the email stream, shuts out the broker, so the broker isn't even aware that emails are being communicated to the broker's client in an email that looks exactly like the broker's email, so that when the client receives it, the client thinks it's an email from the broker. And then the hacker's email, of course, creates a sense of urgency for the buyer and says, buyer, you need to wire your funds immediately. Something has changed. The closing date has been advanced, or the seller's going to be out of town, or sometimes this even happens with earnest money way before we ever get to a closing table, and the email will say something about you have to deposit your earnest money now. And here are the wire instructions for wiring your funds. Don't call me, the email will say, don't call me, I'm going to be in a meeting. And remember, that looks to the consumer like you're the one who's writing this email. Don't call me, I'm going to be in a meeting, I'm at a doctor appointment, I'm going to be traveling, whatever it is. Instead, just wire your funds. And if you have questions, email me. And then, of course, if the client does email you, they're actually emailing the hacker, and then the hacker responds in some way that gives the client assurance that they should go ahead and wire the funds to the account that they've given. Brokers, as is often the case, protecting the consumer falls squarely on your shoulder. Brokers, you have to educate your clients from the moment that you meet them that wire fraud is an enormous risk, not only in our industry, but in today's world. Washington Realtors has provided resources for you to educate your clients, for you to use in educating your clients. I'm holding up a card that you can print off of the Washington Realtors website, or you can get it from your local association in cardstock form. You use this card, actually I think it starts here, to explain the fraud scheme that we just described. And at the bottom of the card, you identify your name and your phone number and the escrow company that you think is going to be involved in the transaction and their number. Now, of course, you may not know on your first meeting with your buyer or your seller who the escrow company is actually going to be. If you have to correct that information in the future, then you correct that information in the future. Give them another card. But the purpose in writing the phone number on there is because you instruct your client, if you have to contact escrow, you contact escrow using this phone number only. Do not ever contact escrow based on a phone number that appears in an email. This is escrow's phone number. And then on the back of the card, you walk them through additional information, and then you have them sign the card. Now, you're going to give them a copy of this so that they have this information, but you're going to keep a copy of the signed card in your records to prove that you gave them this information. That's step one. Step two, help them understand that an escrow company's wire instructions never change. Now, I'm sure that is not really true in the history of the whole world, but the chances of an escrow company's wire instructions changing from the time that the escrow company gives those wire instructions to your client in their initial opening packet to the time of closing are absolutely slim to none. So educate your buyers that the only place you are ever going to wire funds is based on the wire instructions that the escrow company sent you when the escrow company gave you the initial escrow package that was mailed to your clients. Those are the only wire instructions they're ever going to use unless they are given face-to-face another set of wire instructions, either from you or from the escrow company. The third precautionary practice to incorporate is when a consumer is ready to wire their funds, tell them to always do a test wire. Instead of wiring $100,000 to escrow, buyer, wire $100 to escrow. And then contact escrow and see if they got it. And if they did, then you know that you had the right wire instructions and you're going to use those when you wire your $100,000. Are they going to pay 2 wire fees? Yes. Is that an unnecessary expense? Well, it wouldn't be considered unnecessary to any of the countless thousands of people who have already lost tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in these scams. Not every buyer is going to want to do that, to send a test wire first. But let me tell you, if they do that and they know that that $100 gets there, or if that $100 gets lost, think of the money and the time and the emotional energy they've saved for themselves. Those are all practices that your consumers, and I've spoken about buyers in this transaction, certainly to the extent that sellers are wiring funds to anybody, you would have the same discussion with the seller. Those are good practices to incorporate on behalf of your consumers. Brokers and designated brokers, now I'm talking to you specifically. As soon as this video is over, you need to pick up the phone and call your insurance provider and ask about the availability of cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is a fairly new product in the insurance marketplace, but it is becoming more and more available. Washington REALTORS is developing resources right now to enable the purchase of cyber insurance by our members. But until that resource is fully developed, exercise caution for yourselves. Talk to your own insurance carrier. And when I introduced this a minute ago, I said both designated brokers and brokers, and I mean that. Designated brokers, you may have a firm email account that your brokers use, but brokers, many of you, even if you have a firm email account available, and even if you use that firm email account, you also use a separate private email address. That's fine. But if you're doing that, you may need your own cyber insurance policy. Talk to your insurance carrier about the availability of a cyber insurance policy to protect you and your business and your consumer if your email is the email that's hacked, that allows a bad person to steal thousands of dollars from your client. I hope this makes sense. I hope none of you ever actually encounter this situation, but I already know that many of you have and many of you will. So please exercise caution on behalf of your consumers and on behalf of yourselves. If you have questions on this topic or any other, please send an email to me, legalhotline@warealtor.org. Thank you for being a Washington REALTORS member.